The sage of self-knowledge, the knower of truth, is supreme amongst those who are radiant, glorious, strong, great, and endowed with other characteristics which are considered marks of excellence. These sages shine in this world like the sun, the fire, the moon, and the stars all put together. On the other hand, they who have not attained self-knowledge are worse than worms and insects. Well, there seems to be a desire here to get to the top of the pecking order, doesn't there? Which is a little bit suspect. What's the appeal here to? Is the appeal here to the ego that wants to be at the top of the pecking order? It certainly sees that way, and it seems that way, and it's certainly judging others that don't subscribe to this. And as I mentioned previously, this kind of passage is somewhat bereft of love and compassion. And I think this is something we need to be aware of in our self-enquiry. If we're getting precious about things, if we're rejecting the world as polluting and unclean, we've gone astray. We're caught up in the path of traditional yoga then, not the yoga of self-enquiry. If we can salvage anything from this paragraph, I think what we have to say is look at it within yourself, look to yourself, and examine your own activities. Examine what you're caught up in, especially if you have touched the light of truth. If you have some understanding of what it is to be aware of your own awareness, then you must pursue that. Otherwise you're selling yourself short. Otherwise you're not living up to your full potential. Otherwise you're not taking full advantage of the opportunity that you have here as a human being. I think many people have this experience of being aware of their own awareness when thought stops, when their concerns stop, when they're in touch with themselves. Other people might notice it and they'll be told to snap out of it. And they do, and then they just get on with things. They don't pursue it. Maybe they don't appreciate what is happening. They don't appreciate the nature of their own consciousness. But this is what we need to be getting on with. It doesn't mean to say you give up any other activities, because within any activity there's the opportunity for this realization. So I think we can just apply this paragraph to ourselves rather than judging others. You certainly should not be concerned with judging others. That is not part of self-enquiry. We should actually be open to everybody. What we should do is turn the worst of poisons into immortalising nectar. The ghost of delusion afflicts one only as long as self-knowledge does not arise in him. The ignorant man is forever sorrowful, though he roams everywhere to get rid of it. He is truly a walking corpse. Only the sage of self-knowledge is a living sentient being. Even as when dense clouds form in the sky, the sun's light is veiled. When the mind becomes gross with impurities and ignorance, the light of self-knowledge is veiled. Therefore one should abandon craving for pleasures, those that have been experienced in the past and others that have not yet been experienced but for which one craves, and thus gradually weaken the mind by the abandonment of a taste for them. By the cultivation of a false relationship with what is not self, the body and those related to it such as wife, son, family, etc., the mind becomes gross. This might seem quite shocking, regarding your family relationships as false relationships. But I think what happens is you somehow feel you've got an excuse not to practice self-knowledge because you have to get on with your family responsibilities. You don't have to give up your family responsibilities, But at the same time, you need to look hard at the emotional identifications which are taking place, the stories which you're constructing about it, the stories which are sapping your own awareness. The notions of I and mine make the mind dense and ignorant. This is further aggravated by old age, sorrow, ambition, psychological distress, efforts to acquire and to abandon, attachments, greed, lust for wealth and sex, and by the enjoyment of sense pleasures, all of which are based on ignorance and delusion. We've got all these stories going on. I wonder, when you read this sort of passage or you hear it, you think, yes, I agree, but surely it can't mean that you give up this attachment or that attachment. Yes, you give up all attachments. It doesn't mean to say in giving up attachments that you become cold and aloof, just the opposite. When you give up attachments, you give up anxieties, you give up concerns. You can be unconditionally loving in that case, and not just within the selfish confines of family, perhaps. Unconditionally loving. Everybody can benefit from it then.